All right. We will go ahead and call this work session to order. We have a lot to discuss today. First on our agenda is employee recognitions. First, I'd like to welcome Chief Seiler to make recognition in the fire department.
Mayor and Commissioner.
Good evening.
Tonight is a continuation of what we spoke about last month with our captain promotions and the final promotion in our reorganization of the fire department. I'd like to introduce to you Lieutenant Adam Ward. Lieutenant Ward started his fire service career as a volunteer with Sequoia Volunteer Fire Department in 1996. During his tenure at Sequoia, he has served in numerous positions to include chief from 2002 to 2005, at which time he resigned and joined the Dallas Bay Volunteer Fire Department, where he has climbed through the ranks to become the training chief in 2017 and continues to hold that rank today. So all of the guys that I have promoted have held some type of chief officer rank in other outside agencies before they came to work full-time for Red Bank.
Wow.
Lieutenant Ward started his full-time fire service career with us in January of 2017 as a firefighter DPO. He was the leading candidate among those who tested. Lieutenant Ward is married to Amanda, and they have a blended family with 5 children. Adam, congratulations.
Speech.
His helmets have got his old front shield on it because the new ones take about 3 months to get here.
Yeah.
Get a picture.
Okay, and family, come on up. You come on up if you don't mind, and we'll get you in this picture too. Thank you for being here. They're very, very special moments. Okay, we get all the commissioners in the background.
Jamie.
Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Got it. Beautiful picture.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Congrats.
Congratulations. If the commission does not mind, we have an impromptu recognition as well. Director Tate, if you wouldn't mind.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. While normally we do these type of events for new employees, there's something to be said about dedicated personnel that have been with the city year in, year out, and sometimes in an unpaid status. I would like to invite Mr. Alan Bickford to come to the front. You may be saying, I don't recall seeing him on the roster. Mr. Bickford just recently retired from the city of Chattanooga. But in doing so, all these years in the city of Chattanooga, Parks and Recreation, managing softball fields, he came and at a point in time when the city needed someone to take control of some measures, he came and boosted our girls softball association, Red Bank Girls Softball Association. And I guess that was about the time we revamped the ball fields.
Started in 07.
07 started. And he's been with us all these years managing those ball fields. And then when the Dixie Youth Organization closed shop, he agreed to take over that property as part of the Red Bank Girls Association. And he's been maintaining that. Many of you have probably been over there and watched the adult kickball leagues and other things that he's brought in to help boost the participation and use on those fields. And now he is retiring from the city of Chattanooga, but he's also retiring from the city of Red Bank as the license holder and general manager of those facilities. And I can speak personally from the 9 years or so that I've known him. You know, it's been a give and take for both of us. You know, we've had to talk budget numbers and what we can do and what they've done and what they're going to do, and you know, try to make it all work out for the best for the residents of the city of Red Bank. And he's done a fantastic job. You have somebody with you?
My wife, Kathy.
Introduce your wife.
This is my wife. This is Kathy. We've been married 47 years.
47.
Before she was born.
She is actually the boss.
Exactly. Yeah. All the important documents that I see have her name.
This guy was on board when we started. I'm saying he's old too.
I don't have anything to give Alan tonight, but we do have a certificate of appreciation that I will get to him. But we just wanted, as city staff, we wanted to publicly recognize him.
Okay.
for his support of the city. And he is not leaving us empty-handed. He has a partner, Jay, that is going to take over as, the license holder for the committee that runs those ball fields. So the programs will continue to build as time goes by with our new Parks, Trails, and Recreation program.
They're in good hands.
Yeah,
Excellent.
Very good hands.
thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Next on the agenda is a juicy one. I'd like to invite Deputy Director Johnson and City Manager Martin Granum to update us on our school facilities conversation this morning with the county.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners, and also recognizing we have some important stakeholders in the room with us as well. We have County Commissioner Sharp and School Board Member Ben Connor and family members and team.
ETAL.
So Leslie and I and the mayor met with Commissioner Sharp, School Board Member Connor, and Superintendent Dr. Robertson this morning, and had a very good discussion. So what we want to bring to the board is what we talked about this morning, and also open it up for further conversation in open session amongst yourselves with some important stakeholders in the room. I want to recognize right off the bat the work that Vice Mayor Dalton and Commissioner Jamie Fairbanks Harvey have done independent of this meeting. So there's been a lot of engagement, a lot of discussion. This is a community-wide issue. It isn't just a Red Bank City Commission issue. So having said all that, let's, Summer, if you could beam us to the attendees. We met this morning at 8:30. Next slide. Takeaways. We met for over 2.5 hours, and we had a full agenda. But these are really the takeaways. I'm not calling them minutes or notes, but these are kind of the themes that emerged. What is the school district looking for in this new elementary school? It's 10 to 15 acres on a flat parcel of land. And I'll use the word us and them, broadly characterizing us being Red Bank and them being all of the stakeholders involved on behalf of the district and the county. The consensus from those gathered was votes are just not there on either the school board or the county commission to accommodate the anticipated site difficulties associated with placing this new elementary school on either the Alpine Crest Elementary School site or the former White Oak Elementary School site. So that's just kind of, I'll just put that out there. Not agreeing or disagreeing, but that is the consensus of those who met this morning. There is considerable push to obtain a yes on the former Red Bank Middle School site, and I've abbreviated that consistently for the last few years as FRBMSS. So people see that. That's the code breaker there. Former Red Bank Middle School site. And I'll get to a little bit later why, but there is considerable push to get to a yes on that site. As planned, long planned, as we know, Red Bank launched an extensive planning and community engagement process to inform a decision on the former Red Bank Middle School site. So the reality is they can't really consider the Alpine Crest or the White Oak Elementary School site, and we can't rush to a decision on the former Red Bank Middle School site. It's kind of just where the two sides are at this moment. And the reality is our timelines just don't mesh. The city's timeline for the kind of engagement we've envisioned on the former Red Bank Middle School site is going to take a long time to play out. A long time being probably close to a year, more longer. And the reality for the school district is their timeline is January or maybe late winter, early spring at the latest for a decision, at least according to the meeting that we had this morning. Now, as of conclusion of the meeting this morning, we cast our eyes to other potential sites, and we looked at the 11.56 acres that the city currently owns that are the ball fields and the boxing club down there, contiguous with the high school and middle school parcel. And that seemed to offer some early promise, but as it was looked at later on today, just as of about an hour ago, there's a power line that bisects that site, and it looks like that would not be a doable location. So it was an engaging conversation. It was honestly heated at times, but consequential and respectful at the end of the day. So it was kind of a meeting I think the public would hope that all decision makers would get together and have. And the next slide, Summer, is discussion, I'm sorry if you leave it on discussion. One of the things that came out of that meeting is a suggestion, if not a request or a need, to accelerate the small area study on the former Red Bank Middle School site. It just seems that that's the elephant in the room, that everybody's gonna want to be talking about that. So the idea that we wanted to do a comprehensive plan and then a small area study for the commission's consideration tonight, if we want to flip that and redirect our engagement efforts through our vendor, more specifically on the small area study, in an effort to get to a decision on that faster, an informed decision faster. And then after that, wrap around it the comprehensive plan that is likely going to follow from that. And then that was really our update to you. And then we just wanted to take this time and open it up to the commission for conversation in public session. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Thoughts, questions?
So, yeah, I'll start. So I've never heard them stated, what were some of the site difficulties about Alpine Crest or the White Oak site?
And we have some folks here who might be able to correct me if I make a misstatement, and Martin, you're free to speak to that as well, if you'd like to.
Well, we had a pretty good conversation, and I think it really all comes down to cost. We didn't really talk about cost, but they're not flat. They both represent some topographical challenges. White Oak is really 3 tiers, and Alpine Crest has the forested hillside. Alpine Crest is serving as a school, so you would have to design likely around that or dislocate the students for a year or two. And both those issues present cost and difficulty. And the sense of those who gathered was that would present costs that there's no support to pay for. When there's a desire to go to a cleaner site, lower cost, and get on with it.
Well, with the limited resources that the county has to spread thin across all county needs, there doesn't seem to be the support needed to approach what would likely be a more expensive build in Red Bank than they deem necessary. The political will is not there for a more expensive build.
So can I ask a question about how we would know anything about county commissioner votes, since they haven't talked about this in an open meeting?
It was just the consensus of those there. And the discussion just was rooted in their understanding of their colleagues. So yes, there hasn't been votes at either the school board or the county commission to authoritatively say on the record, this is where we stand. But for the purpose of the conversation, it was felt that there wasn't support at the commission level or the school board level for the kinds of investment in those sites it would take, frankly, probably for the district either, to push to upgrade those sites to meet the needs of the plan they're talking about. From an engineering standpoint, I think it's clear that it is doable. But from a political will and a financial resources standpoint, the sense is that it's just not in conversation.
Can I follow up on that and ask, and maybe what's the plan for White Oak Elementary site and Alpine Crest site if they aren't going to build a new school there?
Well, again, I will characterize how I understood the meeting from this morning, not to say that I'm speaking for the district, but there is a desire to retain the White Oak site for undetermined future needs of the district. And I think that they're probably not sure how the demographics ultimately are going to play out in the decade or two hence. And so there is some sense on the part of the decision makers that they need to retain that site for future use. And I don't know that they have an actual plan, but they don't want to dispose of it.
That's what they talked about this morning?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then the Alpine Crest, I think that there is a sense that they don't need that site long-term. And so the disposition of that, there's a conversation to be had around that. Ultimately, the disposition of the Alpine Crest site. And I think there's interest on the part of the commission and the city corporately to be involved in that conversation around all or part of that for public use, going forward. But that's a big site. It's 17 acres. it's a huge building.
Yeah.
And so we'd have to figure out what that looked like. And then it seems likely, and now I'm speculating at this point, this was not part of the conversation. It seems likely there would have to be some, understanding about what part of that was going to stay in public use and what part of it was going to be repurposed for other uses, potentially private uses. It's nested in a neighborhood, so it would make sense. But again, I'm a little over my skis on that one. But it's a big parcel, and I don't see that big of a parcel being retained by either party for, public use. But it's a possibility, conversation to be had.
So I wanted to bring up, because I don't know if hopefully you brought this up. I talked to Ms. Johnson about this yesterday, but you mentioned demographics and looking at like what's, maybe coming down the pipeline. And I went to the facilities committee meeting on November 27th and found out after the meeting that central office has not been tracking growth or development in Red Bank, Soddy Daisy, Signal Mountain, or Walden. Because we all contract with Southeast Tennessee Development District and not RPA. And they were only getting permit and development information from RPA. So there's a huge gap in the data that they had on growth and development happening in all of these communities north of the river, where all of us have seen that there's incredible growth happening in all of these areas. I mean, to the point where Signal Mountain is they're having a conversation about having to expand Thrasher because it's at capacity. And Walden, plays into that. And then the conversation about what's happening with the Soddy Daisy Middle School. So I'm not really sure how they can determine whether or not we need Alpine Crest or not when they don't even have the data for the growth and development that's been happening in our community. So I don't know if that was brought up or if you guys talked about that. I don't know if
Yes.
Ms. Johnson or you could speak to that or the mayor could speak to that.
I'll take a shot. There is demographic data that the district is relying upon, and it's published in that report that's from 2019. We did have a conversation about whether that data is accurate or not, and I think there's reason for people to disagree with the accuracy of it, but they are basing their plans on demographic data that can be reviewed. It's an appendix to that report. And they talk about percent of capacity of the various schools in these attendance areas, Red Bank and Alpine Crest and Rivermont, and they're all largely below capacity. And their understanding of the demographics is it supports their plan. We can disagree, and honestly, some of us did disagree with those numbers, but they are the numbers they're using, and they have their basis for relying upon them. We have had 500, I think is the number, 500 permits since 2019 in the city of Red Bank. We have a 210 unit apartment complex coming in and a 48 unit condo coming in. None of those turned dirt yet. So I'm assuming those will bring students to the district, but how many is up for discussion. And there is a sense on the part of the district that they have growth factored into their plans.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I would say, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I will add that, our contracted staff at SETD did contact me today, but the school board has reached out to them today to gather that data.
Since I spoke with Mr. Coulter.
Correct.
Excellent. I will say that I do know that Red Bank Elementary is 90 students away from capacity. So there's not a lot of room for growth there. So I just wanted to put that out there because I talked to the principal and that's the most current information.
I think many people would agree with you, Vice Mayor, but the district is confident in their growth projections. But they are just projections, so.
Sure.
And worth noting is the impact of the moratorium, the WWTA sewer moratorium. So when that comes off and the comprehensive plan that we're undertaking envisions a more dense Red Bank, I don't know that recent past demographic growth is necessarily a good predictor of the next decade.
Especially with, especially with the shortage of housing that we're seeing just across the nation in general, and also in our community.
Yeah, I did make some points as well about the rising housing costs could mean more families, or families with more children packing into smaller homes in the past where you might have had a 2-bedroom house would have zero or one child. Now you might see 2 or more children in a 2-bedroom house because that's what people, or an apartment. Whereas they would have used to prefer homes, standalone homes over apartments. If that becomes what families can afford, then they see density being generated solely from a housing cost perspective, even without changes to the built environment.
Um,
Go ahead.
If I may, how accelerated is the accelerated discussion? I mean, months, weeks, or,
I don't think it's weeks.
The small area study.
well, the accelerated for the property on Dayton Boulevard.
That's something that we're gonna discuss tonight, if that's the direction that I'm given. I did have a brief conversation with our consultant tonight, prior to our meeting, just to make sure that that was in their capacity if we decided to shift our focus, just on the small area study to start with. That is, that they can accommodate that. Like I said, we'll have a follow-up with them after tonight's decision, if that's the direction that commission pushes me to.
If I can follow up, you mean that part of the small area study being accelerated?
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Or the entire small area study would be accelerated to include, of course, all potential uses of the property, to include educational uses, which were not necessarily going to be on the menu before this facilities plan was published. But now, if
Proposal.
yeah, thank you. If this commission so desires, we can direct staff to add the educational use to the site, small area plan, and we can direct staff to prioritize and accelerate the small area plan ahead of the comprehensive plan if we should choose to do so.
Okay, can I ask about that? So I just want to make sure I'm understanding what you guys are saying when you're talking about accelerating that part of the plan or the planning effort. So that would just be done first to completion.
I
And
would say
then master planning would begin or
It could,
what?
I think what'll happen is at some point, the decision, the commission, this commission will feel comfortable making a decision on a school or no school. And once that decision is made, depending on the decision, it could reopen a new round of conversation on the small area plan. So it could go back into a follow-on of the comprehensive plan, depending on the decision that was reached.
And you're saying that based off of whatever feedback we might get from the community with this kind of amended menu of options, so to speak, is that right?
And potentially, if the whole idea of the school is not supported, then it could open up a broader, richer conversation about what does go in there then.
Because the conversation isn't school or no school. It's, A or B or C or D, a school, a park, a civic center, commercial, mixed use, all the options are on the table. And, if we start seeing, if we accelerate this plan, we start getting feedback and we're seeing from the very beginning that the educational use is pulling way ahead of the other uses, that could really give us, well, either way, if it's pulling way ahead or if it's falling way behind, that gives us a pulse on the community and confidence to give the county an answer as soon as possible.
I mean,
within our schedule.
I feel like that would kind of be putting the cart in front of the horse in a way. I mean, that piece of property could be a cornerstone for the future growth of Red Bay.
It will be. Whatever
It's a
we
$5
do
million
with it.
piece of property.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whatever
But
you do with it, one way or the other, is going to
you know,
shape our community.
It's a 100-year decision.
Absolutely.
And this is why our former commission
Mhm.
with Miss Ruth Janot and Ed LeCompte decided that we wanted to move forward with master planning before the small area study, or that it would kind of fall under the umbrella of master planning because of what you just said. It's like not putting the
Yeah,
cart
I
before the
think
horse.
we.
But also circumstances have some were changed. So,
Yeah,
Can't get, and, you know, and it seems like it's gonna be an either or. Either we keep a school in Red Bank and give up our property there, or we don't get a school in Red Bank. And is there no other way could the Red Bank pay for some topographical stuff to make it a better piece of property? I mean, is that the only pieces of property that are available? I find that very hard to believe. And I think that, you know, and if we talking about partnering with them to get into that conversation space, I'd like to have that. I mean, there should be something that we could do with the land that we have, or private land that we could maybe purchase, that we could do a land swap or something like that. I just don't see why it's, you know, there's only one deer in the forest.
Sure. I mean, we just purchased 5 acres, you know, right by the fire station. What about the commercial property that's adjacent to it?
Right.
I mean,
My understanding is that commercial property has already been sold. Not to say it's a private market, it can always be sold again.
Well,
I'm open to exploring any options, given the county's requirements of 10 to 15 acres of flat land. I agree that there's probably other options within our city limits.
which I think our comprehensive plan would probably identify,
Right.
but you know, it's.
But then the timeline, it comes down to the county's timeline again.
And, you know, and I can't do that. I can't do anything about that. I can't do anything about where they gather their numbers, how they get their information. I can't do anything about that stuff, but I think we can do something. You know, or the power line through the middle of the school. I mean, if that's the deal killer, so be it. But you know, I just think we got to keep looking. You know, there's got to be more.
I don't disagree. I'm more than happy to, again, explore any or all options. I'm less optimistic that, again, the county's timeline will allow for that kind of exploration to be practical, but whatever steps we can take, you know, the city can continue to act in good faith.
so did we get any sense of how flexible this part of the plan is in relation to their timeline? I mean, I'm trying to remember the plan. I mean, it seemed like there were several phases. Could this not be phase 3 instead of phase 1?
I mean, I can't answer that question, but I can speak a little bit to that particular part of the proposal. The consensus was of the 8 of the 11 school board members that were present on November 20th when they had their first facilities committee meeting about this and talked about Alpine Crest and Rivermont, was that they didn't want to consolidate the 3 schools. That was the consensus of the school board members that were present. And they all generally seem to agree that keeping, and Mr. Connor specifically stated that keeping a school in Red Bank is like absolutely his hill. And the other school board members that responded to that appeared to agree with that. So there again was consensus that there shouldn't be 3 schools consolidated, which is what the proposal said, between DuPont, Hickson Elementary, Rivermont, and Alpine Crest. So what the school board actually discussed was Hickson and DuPont potentially consolidating, and then Rivermont and Alpine Crest. My feeling, and I don't, this is just my feeling of just like listening to the conversation, being at every single one of the school meetings, community meetings, is that Rivermont is in such bad shape that something has to be done there. And it seems kind of like Alpine Crest kind of got lumped in with them because it's also an aging facility and a smaller school. Alpine Crest is not really in an like emergency state. Like, you know, Mr. Perez commented on that, you know, that's not really, he doesn't see Alpine Crest as like a priority. Rivermont definitely is a priority because there's leaks all across the roof, leaking into the school building, causing mold and things like that to happen. So it's just not, as he says, which I really love, that building is not worthy of those students. And so something has to happen there. So I think that's where it gets a little tricky, because if they have to close that school or do something if they have to close the school, if that's what they end up deciding to do, you know, those children have to go somewhere. And they can't fit at Alpine Crest currently. They don't have capacity for that. So even if Alpine Crest could kind of, be put off for like a couple years until they figure out what to do to keep an elementary school in Red Bank, Rivermont students have to go somewhere.
Could we invite our other stakeholders up here
Of course.
to, thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
We appreciate you being here.
Brought notes. This is the facilities proposal. It is online if you want, but if you want, there's a bunch of my chicken scratch in it too.
You have a question?
Well, yeah, well, I mean, is there a chance, I mean, is this our options? I mean, is the only option the former Red Bank Middle School site,
So,
I guess?
city manager said it in a perfect way that I said it a couple times. I don't have a crystal ball. I
Okay.
don't know at the end of the day how people are going to vote, but I've been with this board for more than a year now. I've been in a bunch of different facilities meetings with them. I feel like I've got a decent sense of what's going to happen. I feel like from the things that they've said and from the way that we've talked about it and comments from other members in other meetings that I honestly, if you ask me right now, gun to my head, what do I think is the options? I think that the first option is that we enter into an interlocal with the city of Red Bank to do something for the middle school property, the former middle school property. And I think that if that doesn't happen, then I feel like the board will move on and we'll go with the Hickson site. Part of this week's meetings that have been really good, getting to meet with the city of Red Bank and instead of taking 3 hours at this meeting, being able to take 3 hours and really hash through and talk about things,
Sure.
and come to a conclusion. We did a similar thing. Each one of the sitting school board members met with Mayor Wong to discuss the plan and where we were at with it. Obviously, this section I told him to put on hold because I needed to talk to Mayor Berry and the city manager, but they brought up the quality of the DuPont location for a few reasons that we've talked about tonight, about how Alpine Crest would need to be moved if we were to rebuild an Alpine Crest for at least the time that it is being built. It's not feasible to bus children in and construction traffic. Equally, the ideas of how do you have 500 students when right now you've got 280, 300, and looking at the numbers. Alpine Crest has
306, I believe, is what Shelley said
Okay.
yesterday.
forgive me, I'm working off of something from the end of October, but it
Yes.
says 310. So, yeah, okay. And then, sorry, so that would facilitate them moving. And the things that we've been told is that from shovel hitting ground to school opening is at a minimum 18 months. That's the numbers I'm working on. I know that we were at odds a little bit on that one. We thought it could be quicker, but that was what I've been told. So again, I don't do that for a living, so I trust when the people tell me that. So saying all of that, I come back to my thoughts, and this is again my feelings. I don't have a crystal ball, but I think that we take action on this site, or we're going to have our hands tied, and my one vote isn't going to win.
So yes, is basically what you're saying.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I really like putting 1,000 words where 10 will do, but that's basically it.
Yeah,
Can you clarify, really, can you expound on that? Because I was at that school board meeting and I was also at the second facilities committee meeting, which this didn't come up again anyway. It was just that one meeting. You all have not met again.
No. Except for meetings with the mayor.
Your individual meetings, right?
Right.
One-on-one meetings with the mayor,
And-
I'm sure Dr. Robertson communicates information,
Exactly the same way
To
the city
each-
manager can talk to
right.
Joel, like.
of
hey,
course.
yeah.
But so you're saying to me that the consensus was of your colleagues, you and your colleagues, that it should not be 3 schools getting consolidated into one, that it should be 2 at the most. And you're saying now that would change if we say we can't make this deal with you right now because we have committed, made a promise to our community to do a fully robust community engagement process around this property. That if we don't make a decision like ASAP, that your school board members are going to flop back to let's consolidate all 3 schools at DuPont.
Sorry, I was not clear.
Okay, that's
So,
why I'm asking,
yeah.
because I'm trying to make sure that I'm understanding.
We would still utilize the DuPont site, but we would not utilize the plan sitting there. We would instead, as I've been told, is work with rezoning so that it would be, again, Red Bank Elementary is currently at 81% capacity with, and again, I'm working off end of November or end of October numbers, but it appears they have about 135 seats available. Again, I'm working off the end of October numbers, but so the conversation line, and today was even stated that the district is committed to not creating another mega school, that they are committed to keeping it in that range that we've talked about.
Mhm.
The range that would essentially be 2 schools.
Right.
But the difference is that there would be rezoning that would need to happen in order to make it correct. And as we've talked about a bunch, the properties would be held on to specifically because with either site, the former Red Bank Middle School or the site we thought about off of Morris Springs Road that unfortunately has the giant power line running through it, both of those make it very difficult for people that are currently zoned for Rivermont to get to. Lupton City and the areas right around Rivermont will be having a long journey, especially, and Mr. Sharp mentioned it, he knows, obviously, we both know a lot of people in the area. There's a lot of people that work in East Brainerd that live there that would be driving. So anyway, that the reason I say that is holding onto that property would allow for growth. And so down the road, Rivermont could become a place that we could build another elementary school. And in the meantime, take down the building and start over, whether that be a pre-K center or whatever. These are all speculatory, so I'll stop there, but that's
Okay, so with regard to the White Oak Elementary site, if I may,
Yeah.
sorry, the option to demolish that building and just build up is not an option?
This is an option. What I'm speculating is that it's a distant third option. What would be the best option, I feel like, that the board agrees with, is at Red Bank, the former Red Bank Middle property. And then the next option the board will jump to is the DuPont site. And then if somehow, but that one works. That was part of this proposal, so they've already looked at it and they know that they can build a school in the backyard and then a school in the front yard for demolishing. Like they know they can do that one without displacing the students as they would have to at Alpine Crest.
At DuPont.
Yes, ma'am.
That's a large
But
enough
you're
site.
talking about still paying, so you guys would be willing to pay the cost of demolishing at the DuPont site, but not the White Oak Elementary site? Or like as a better option for
I'm saying.
consideration?
I'm
Yes,
speculating.
I'm just,
that speculating based on the numbers and the cost prohibitiveness that has been presented to each one of us, both individually and in the meetings, I'm speculating that the options are 1, 2, distant third because of cost. So
In terms of political feasibility.
that is a great way to put it as well. I don't know the votes are there. That's why Martin put that in. He put it in there because that was what I said a few times. Is I worry that if we lose the one, I can't fight hard enough to get to number 3.
do you have the cost estimates for what it would cost to demolish at DuPont, build a mid-sized school to have a potentially 800 student capacity versus the cost of demolishing the building at White Oak Elementary and building a new facility there and going up so you don't have to go down into the sloped tier levels?
I
And
don't.
then maybe even, and whatever at Alpine Crest, what that would look like.
I don't have an exact dollar amount because we haven't gotten to the point where we would bid it out to anyone to create a contract for it. But they have added in speculatory parts of needing to widen the street on Altamont, needing to increase different things that they do there, and also noting community input. We kept buses there for a little while after the Dawn School moved, and I hadn't even been sworn in yet and got a call daily about them. So I know that is something that can be rectified, but the area is pushed all the way back against those homes. And so it is different. There would be different things that need to come into play. And that's one of them. Widening the roads, sidewalks. The costs kept adding up.
It was
That's
a-
why.
White Oak Elementary was a fully functioning elementary school until
Until the mid-nineties.
2006
Right.
or so.
Oh, today, Dr. Robertson mentioned the nineties. I am unaware. I
And then it changed to the Dawn
was
School.
slightly younger than I am now in 1990.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I mean, okay, here's the way I'm seeing it. You know, all of this is good conversation and all that stuff, but you're asking us to delay our plan or move ours forward without delaying yours at all. I mean, is there no way we can meet in the middle? This is a 12-year project proposal. This is first year 1, 2, and 3. And it just seems like it's like, come on.
This is a page I'm gonna pull out of David's book. I'm gonna step over here.
Yeah.
That's their plan, their proposal.
Yeah.
That was handed to me. And I made this point
I
this
mean,
morning.
I'm willing to have these conversations. Let's have these things, but I mean, we can't do this in 2 weeks.
And I think, I know that I spoke to both of you. I believe I've told everybody on the board or on the commission this, that I know that it feels like I've got a gun to your head. I've got a cannon to my chest.
Yeah.
So I'm not the only vote. This is going to get voted on no matter what I do.
So there's no way that we can ask. I mean, it just sounds like all of our hands are tied. I'm sorry to
Turn it
say.
down. I mean, if we don't like it, then that's what they're coming to us
And that-
with.
that's
That,
what I
my take is what's most convenient for our children. Where's a location that's centrally located that our children in Red Bank that don't go to private schools, that will go to our public school in Red Bank and rename the one over there, but collaborate with another school such as Rivermont or wherever, so our children can have a centrally located place to be educated.
That's a perfect point, and that's what I hope you guys take from me fighting for this. What I'm doing is I'm hearing that my back's against the wall, and I'm hearing that I have very limited options, and I hear and I stand by what I said, that my one goal and commitment is to keep an elementary school in Red Bank. And I'm listening to my peers and I'm listening to the people around me, and I see my options on the table.
And that's it.
And whether my hands are tied or not, I'm delivering the message.
Yeah.
You can shoot the messenger.
Can
The
I-
cannon will get me too.
I'm sorry. Can I ask, I actually just really want to repeat Pete's question about consideration of other parcels in our city.
And that's a great point too. And it was something we discussed also today, especially when we were talking about the parcel on Moore Springs Road at the backside of the high school and middle school. Part of the conversation line that we had was, we could figure out a way that that could be bought from us. I was like, whoa, we need to stop there. I was like, we own the DuPont site, and in the deed it says it has to be an educational center of some sort. But what we were talking about with the Red Bank Middle School property was a land swap, and to my knowledge, it has been discussed to have a vast amount of Alpine Crest, acknowledging the value of that property. It was also discussed at length today about things that we could give, we being the school district, could give in the interlocal agreement to hopefully soften the blow and make it more of a park-like area. Things that were discussed were a library, being able to be a mixed use, amphitheater, making sure that the school system provided and maintained bathrooms that were open to the public during park hours. Again, I'm going down the road, but it was talked about different things. So that's a swap. That's not us having to purchase land, because every dollar that we would have to spend purchasing land hurts the votes for me to get it done. Because again, we own the DuPont site. We do own the White Oak site, but the DuPont site is that 10 flat acres that we were talking about that was on the slide. So
It's partially in a flood zone
it is
and
partially,
is built on former chemical plant site and is surrounded by environmental pollution.
I would absolutely make sure that all studies were done. And again, that's not what I want. So
I know you don't.
yeah.
I'm just stating these things
Okay.
really somewhat rhetorically. That is really not an ideal site for any students to be learning in, day out. I really liked Dr. Robertson's comment at your all's November 27th Facilities Committee meeting, talking about the fact that the deed says public educational purposes, does not say it has to be a school, so that they could potentially even move like the virtual school there. So I guess maybe they wouldn't be on site every day. I don't know. I'm just thinking about little children running around. The day that we had that meeting, you had that meeting and I attended that meeting, two vehicles crashed into each other on Hickson Pike and crashed through the fence onto the DuPont property. Literally that day. That site is incredibly dangerous and unsafe. And with the amount of traffic that goes through there daily, with the gas station that's getting put in there, that's environmental pollution on top of the traffic that's going to add there. Plus the Home Depot warehouse that's going in on Access Road, like DuPont Parkway coming up behind them, you know, the school site, like that site. When you all are talking about, and I hear this is not directed at you, this is the district. When you all are talking about doing what's best for the children, that is not the answer.
I'm trying.
That goes to the whole school district, the school board members, the superintendent. That site is not an ideal learning environment for any students, especially young students who are developing, whose brains are growing. This has come up, but you know, we're seeing what's happening with lead in the ground on the south side, right? All these people that have been playing, like the children who've been growing things in there and consuming things, like they've been trying to fix that, but they found out that there's even more than they thought. I don't know. Do we know what's there at that site, you know, in the ground soil there? I don't know. These are all, again, like things you said, this is above my pay grade, but these are things that we have heard from our community that we need to be really thoughtful about. And when we're talking about doing, like you said, what's best for our children, making sure that they have a safe place to be while they are in school, that's not the answer. And it's definitely not the answer to move our students out of Red Bank into a very dangerous school site.
I think you just said every reason why that's option 2. I'm fighting so hard for option 2.
And I understand that. It's, as we keep saying, I think the timing is very, very unfortunate.
I could not agree more. And it was said earlier today, this this one was given to Commissioner Sharp and I 72, 48 hours in advance.
Right.
And we did not support it then. We did not leave that sat next to you and did not stand in support of it because I can't support it the way it is. That's all. Trying really hard.
Thank you.
Commissioner Fairbanks.
Sure, thank you. Has there been any consideration about, my name is on this Library Civic Center, of Alpine Crest possibly being that Library Civic Center?
Absolutely.
They got a library there. Updating however it looks for a civic center.
So community members in the meeting asked if we entered into an interlocal agreement, what that could look like for Alpine Crest. And again, it is up to you all. If we entered into an interlocal, we would be giving you that property and you guys could ask for anything within reason for us to consider to do at the former Red Bank Middle site. But once that property is yours, if the city of Red Bank could sustain the building, they can have it to do with whatever. The ideas that I heard were a senior civic center, continuing education center. I'm forgetting something. Jim Louise, I'm forgive me. There's a few.
It's similar, or possibly Signal Mountain Middle was like that, and it's got businesses.
Yes.
And the track is still there. There's still a gym there, but that's that spot. I'm just extrapolating what the possibilities.
With that site, somebody else had said, because I mentioned that it's still not ADA compliant and would need to be addressed. But to your comment about businesses or different units, each one of those exterior facing classrooms would have an exterior door and a sidewalk that would alleviate the need for stairs. But again, it would be at the pleasure of this commission to do with the property if an interlocal swap of properties.
Question for you. So kind of stepping back one point in the conversation, how do your colleagues feel about the timeline presented? I mean, when it comes to a vote, are they ready for it? Do they feel like the due diligence has been done?
It's funny, because I had this conversation with somebody. I was worried that we were going to have to vote on it in December based on the meetings that we all attended that said December. But in the last facilities meeting that Vice Mayor Dalton and Commissioner Jamie Fairbanks Harvey were at, actually, we were there as well. Sorry. Dr. Robertson did say that we were going to talk about it in December and then put it for potential vote in January. no one else has said that it seems fast other than me. I think that if I'm going down the row of the things that were discussed, I think that it sounds like the board member from District 1 is very adamant that they've needed a middle school for a long time, and one of the two proposals will help the community there. I think that the realization that we didn't want to combine into the mega schools that Vice Mayor Dalton has eloquently pointed out a multitude of times, but that we didn't want to do that has caused us to reconsider the closing of Clifton Hills and putting it into 2 schools for a revitalization of all 3 of the schools. So the board member from District 11 is obviously very happy about that. So I think that she's getting something that she needs. I think that because of the monies that are being awarded from the city of Chattanooga and potentially a grant from the state of Tennessee, specifically for CTE, that has kind of pushed up and made it possible to consider CCA moving into the Gateway building, because in that instance, it doesn't create a new school code, meaning a brand new school. We've got a great school that needs that space and can still have CTE involved with it and work really well together. So we satisfy a bunch of things. So I say all of that again because I really like using 1,000 words, where Tim will do, but I think that everyone else sees need and wants to get their piece of the pie right away. So no one else no one else has this situation. Everyone else's properties are owned by the Hamilton County Schools, essentially. The only thing I would add is that I wish we hadn't sold Appleton, because that would have been one that we could have built on and alleviated some drowning in the south side of Chattanooga. So that's why we're holding on properties, because the crystal ball situation. But if we had to utilize Alpine Crest to get the other property that maybe we shouldn't have given that one away either.
I did ask for clarification from Dr. Robertson that if the middle school property was determined not to be available to the district and they were to continue with the DuPont plan, that the district would still be holding to its target enrollment of 600 to 800 students per site, and he assured me that it would, and that the DuPont school would not be a mega school.
And I repeated that in this
yes.
meeting to make sure it was on the record.
Our students could potentially end up going to DuPont, but it would not be the initial mega school that had been in the original proposal. So there would still be it wouldn't be straight back to the OG plan that was
But there's only 250 students there right now. So we're talking about bumping that number up to like 650 to 800 students. And again, I'm talking about the traffic here. I'm not sure how that is going to be possible, safety wise.
Commissioner Fairbanks.
But would the zoning be revamped for
Yes.
that, in case some would go to Red Bank Elementary on Mountain Creek Road, and then some could potentially go to DuPont?
Yes, and in some of the current DuPont population would end up being rezoned for Hickson Elementary. Current DuPont enrollment is 255 at 72% capacity. And then Hickson Elementary is currently populated at 420, and that's about an 89%. So, and there is, I've been told, Hickson Elementary is on my list to get up there and tour through, but I've been told that there's room to put stuff in.
Renovate.
To
maybe,
expand.
Yeah.
To expand it some,
Expand it.
yeah, because again, it's under that 600.
I was gonna see if Commissioner Sharp had any comments for us.
Could I ask a question really quick?
Yeah,
I'm
oh,
sorry.
definitely.
It's
No,
on
no.
to, just
No.
to tack on to what you were asking about the Alpine Crest property, just really quick. If the middle school property, if we are somehow able to kind of accelerate engagement with the community and figure something out in a few months, I still don't even know. It sounds to me like your impression is like, we don't really, it's, even if we did that, I mean, would that even work? That's not, let me say that, and then let me ask the other part, okay? So if it would work, and then we still get feedback that's whatever, however you framed it, Mayor, I'm sorry, like where putting a school on that property is just like at the bottom of everyone's list, okay? And it's, so we're like, no, we can't as a board do that. What would you all do with the Alpine Crest property? Would close the school and then sell it to a developer? And I don't mean you
it would-
personally, I mean
It
the
would
school
be a
district.
vote, and I don't know that, I would see it being sold probably. If
And
it's not
that's
something that
for
we want
money.
to hold on
And
to.
that's from your board or the county commission or both?
Bit of
I think
both.
it's from a sense of what the school district might need in the future. I don't think Hamilton County Schools, from the superintendent's perspective, sees a need for a school at Alpine Crest.
Well, sure, but what I'm
At
asking
any
is,
point in time.
who, do you all vote on that and then the county commission, or does the county commission vote on that, or how does that work?
I believe it's both.
Okay,
Mr. Sherman, am I incorrect? We would have to, I
I
believe.
don't know who owns the property. I don't know what's on the deed for that particular. Some of the properties are owned by the school district. Some of the properties are owned by the county.
the property assessor site says that the school district owns it, so.
It should be us. I'm constantly amazed at the things that the commission sometimes.
So
tell me
if
I
that's
can't
what
do,
the
but
assessor's office says, then I would work under the assumption that's the school's property. And as we discussed earlier today, it would in all likelihood be put up for sale and they would accept the highest bid.
And then if you all sell the property, I mean, if it's determined to be the school district's property and you all vote to sell the property, who gets that revenue? Does it go, like, cause you all don't, you're not a self-funding body, so how?
you're right. And you are catching me in the part that I don't know. And I apologize for that. I'm not certain if it would be, if that would be considered into our fund balance
Mhm.
or into our maintenance balance, or if that money at such a large dollar amount would have to go to the county commission for approval.
I don't think so. I believe that the school system owning that property would have the authority to sell that property and they have their own fund balance. So.
Okay, and is,
I would
this-
have not done that.
okay,
in my
thank
time
you.
on the board.
and I'm sorry, this is a quick question, maybe Ms. Johnson, or I don't know where Mr. Tate went. How are our schools zoned? Would there be any like requirement for rezoning since it's currently a school? Like if they want to sell it to a residential
From a land
developer?
use perspective.
It already falls underneath that residential, because it's in that area.
Because of
It's not-
where
it's
the
not
neighbor,
Specific zoning, correct.
it would just to whatever like adjacent zoning is there. Okay, so thank you.
So my understanding of what staff needs from this board at this time,
I think she was asking Mr. Sharp to come on.
Mr.
No,
Sharp,
if he, yeah,
I mean,
Mr. Sharp.
do you have anything?
if you
Commissioner
ask me
Sharp.
to, I will. Thank you, David Sharp, 3003 York Drive, Red Bank, Tennessee. This is a great conversation. We had a great conversation earlier today too. Was quite heated at times. I believe that probably stems from the sense of urgency in this matter. As a tax-paying resident of Red Bank and a proud citizen here in Red Bank, it's an incredibly important topic to me personally. I appreciate all of you for your advocacy, particularly Vice Mayor Dalton. I know that this is a very heartfelt issue for you, and I appreciate that. As a county commissioner, our main role is managing the dollars in Hamilton County. And there are a lot of projects in Hamilton County. I like to refer to our deferred maintenance as a deficit in services that we provide to our community. That deficit is about $1 billion currently today. This particular initiative is billed at about a $200 million project, some of which some experts I've spoke with said it's maybe closer to 300 million or more potentially. So as we're assessing how we go about addressing these facility needs and deferred maintenance issues in Hamilton County, it's critically important that we watch our pennies in hopes that the dollars take care of themselves so that we can stretch our resources to address issues across the county, including Red Bank. But knowing all of these things and the individuals that I work with, and the shrewdness with watching dollars, as we typically tend to be, particularly when it comes to public education, this is something I can assure you will be watched very closely. And as eloquently as our school board member, Mr. Connor, has has put all of this and entertained all these questions and gone into great detail, to me, it all boils down to a very simple equation as I see it. And that is right now, the future of elementary education for students, particularly on the north end of Red Bank, rests in the hands of this commission that I stand before today. We can, as a community, entertain the idea of building a new elementary school on Dayton Boulevard at the old middle school site, and what that might provide for our community. Or the alternative is that we will have our children going to elementary school on the DuPont location. I know that there are many little details and idiosyncrasies of both of these locations. And as much as we stir the pot and muddy the water, it's still pretty shallow, whether we see through it or not. This is what it boils down to. And as a taxpaying resident of this community, for the city of Red Bank, the benefit of the city of Red Bank, it is my belief that it would be best for this community and the families that reside in the city of Red Bank for this commission to seriously consider expediting the small area plan study and communicating with Hamilton County Schools the opportunity to build an elementary school on this site. And that's what I would request. Those are my thoughts, heartfelt and sincere. And I don't know that I have much else to contribute.
Thank you, Commissioner Sharp.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. So my understanding of what staff needs from us at this time, because we are running towards the end of our meeting time, and we can go over, if that's all right with everybody here, and run into our 6 o'clock meeting, which I normally try not to do because we only have one voting item on our 6 o'clock meeting, so it can start a little late if necessary. This is a really important conversation. But staff wants to know whether or not we wish to direct them to accelerate the small area plan and add the educational component to it. I have also heard that, the initial intention of grouping our comprehensive plan and our small area plan with the previous commission, not this one, was that we wanted to get that comprehensive plan first and see what emerged as needs in order for that to inform the small area plan that would come later. We would have to sacrifice that sequence of things that we had intended in order to do this. But again, circumstances have changed. So I pose it to the commission. How do we wish to proceed?
Eloquently put, Mayor.
That was very eloquent. Thank
Very
you.
well done. Thank you.
Can I ask another question before we discuss that really quickly? If we do this and our community says, no, thank you, the impression that I'm getting is that you all aren't going to listen to our community and you're going to move our school out of Red Bank.
I'm speculating.
Again, this is not you, Mr. Connor. You are a representative of the school.
In your opinion, in
In
your
your
professional
opinion.
opinion, Representative Connor, is it your opinion that the school
Yes.
board would choose to do so?
I think that,
Thank you.
I do. I think that there's a lot of factors at DuPont that other people aren't weighing the passionate plea that you just made, that I am. But I think that there's too many factors, not just with regard to the flat and the cost and what I've been told and the ability to get cars in and out of there, but equally partnerships with the YMCA that's there, different things that have been brought up. So in my opinion, I speculate that if we don't get this done over here, that DuPont will have it. We'll be the site of the other chosen site.
Even if we, as a board, said like we already have told you all, that we are the school district, that we are willing to be partners and potentially investing some funds into site prep or whatever at White Oak Elementary
I'll say
or
never say never.
Alpine
Put it
Crest.
on paper and deliver it to the board.
Do we have
before-
any kind of estimate of what the additional land moving costs might amount to at the White Oak site to
We
make it
haven't,
feasible?
we haven't again, we haven't bid it out to get exact numbers. We've asked estimates and cost estimates of the people that are on staff that do that for a living, and that's their whole job of, so again, it is not on paper, so I can't speak to it. I don't know if I mentioned it, I'm speculating. That's what we've been told, and I'm going off of what the people that we pay a good amount of money to work for the school system and speculate on these things and look them up and get to our answers. So I'm trusting their opinion.
Can we get that data? I don't know how you all feel, but I'm happy to temporarily postpone this, maybe have a special called meeting if we need to. So that we have the data to inform our decision. I feel like it's not really fair to just say, well, again, not you, because you haven't been given paper, but like for them to present us with some actual hard data, this is how much this is going to cost here, this is how much this is going to cost there, then we can talk about that. And not only that, I was at the county commission meeting a month or so ago. I don't know, maybe Commissioner Sharp can speak to this, but Commissioner Helton asked for the education committee or whoever, the finance committee, to be looking into the cost estimates of all of these things. And I don't know if anything ever came of that. I don't know if that subcommittee or that committee met to talk about those things, because he said specifically, we're the funding body. We should know how much these things are going to cost. So to me, I thought that was an excellent point. I would love to have that data as well. Before we make a decision for our community. I think it's really important. I feel like I'm kind of flying blind right now. You're saying that you're being told, oh, well, this would cost more. Okay, I feel like we really need to see that.
So do we even know that TSW can do this in the amount of time that the county is effectively giving us?
Not by January.
So yeah, I mean, this is kind of ridiculous to even talk about
The compromise that has been expressed to me, and please, any representative of the county, feel free to correct me, was that if the city were to do what is within our power, which would be to accelerate the small area plan and add the educational purpose to the options, that it would be considered an olive branch. And implied was perhaps Red Bank would be granted more time to reach the end of that conclusion. We might not be. We could have put that on the menu and the county boards could both continue on without us before we even get an answer. There's no guarantee there. But it's
that
up
makes
to
me
us.
feel uneasy. I mean, we're already getting strong-armed, and who's to say they're not going to just do it again?
Well, there's nothing to say that there's nobody from the county who can promise us that it won't happen, except for 6 members of each respective commission collectively. So there's no guarantee for us that this, however we change our plans, that it would result in any change to the county's plan. It's just, there's what is within the city's power to do rationally and reasonably, and then there's what isn't. And it's up to us, how we want to proceed with that.
Well, we make the big bucks.
Right. The big bucks. We can decide. We can decide collectively as a commission, no, the middle school property is, not on the table. And if that's our decision, it belongs to us and the county will move on. Or we can decide, there's this whole flow chart of possibilities. We could add it. We could accelerate the small area plan, and the answer could be yes, we want a school there, but the county's already moved on. Mm-hmm. The answer could be no, we don't want a school, and then the county moves on. We could choose not to put it on the plan. There's a whole slew of possibilities here, and it's how do we want to proceed with what's in our control? Because there's a lot that's not in our control.
Yes, Mayor, I would like to reiterate that in case it wasn't clear, I don't feel comfortable making this decision with the lack of hard data that we don't have right now, the lack of data that we have. Is that something that the school district and or the county commission can provide to us? Because this was talked about several weeks ago, so surely the committee has met at the county commission level to start having that conversation, started gathering data of their own. You said that there are people hired or that are employees of the district that do this, or are they contracted, or?
the people that have looked at this is like Justin Witt, who works for the school system.
Okay,
and
so-
is working with contractors and different things like that.
Okay, so he could have some kind of like estimates, kind of.
And as far as I understand, and again, I was not a part of this,
Sure.
but they did have people on this committee that were contractors and could speculate out the dollars, and I.
But none of that is actually in the proposal.
No,
so.
there's not any dollar amounts in the proposal.
Right. So, I mean, I'm speaking for myself. I can't speak
White
for my
Oak's also
colleagues.
not in this.
That's right. That's
So,
right.
yeah.
But I just don't feel comfortable making a decision either way. I'm not saying no. I don't feel comfortable saying no either. But I don't feel comfortable saying this is exactly what I think we should do when I don't feel informed enough.
So I'll repeat myself another time and say that it is a terrible timeline, but it is the timeline that has been put in front of us to decide. And I've said this morning, and I'll repeat it again, that inaction is also an action. So if this board, if this commission chooses not to act on the information at hand and what is being forced upon you, then my board will have to act.
So you're saying the answer is no on the data?
No, I did not say
Okay.
no on the data. I don't have that. I can ask for anything.
Okay.
And I will gladly.
Sure.
Shoot me an email with what you want, and I will forward it on and make sure that it goes to the right people to ask for it. I don't have it.
Sure, sure. Yes, right.
I've got
None
it
of
here.
none of you all have that.
Yeah.
I don't think, right?
I don't have it, but I could ask for it.
We have discussed in the past as a board how the city could incentivize the White Oak site, which is the preferred site from this commission's perspective.
Right. If Alpine Crest is
Right.
absolutely out of the question, which it sounds like it is.
Right, from a displacement perspective, but because of the fact that there's no active school at the White Oak site currently, it wouldn't displace any active students. It seems like a more feasible option. We've talked about before how the city can incentivize it. Do you have any concept, in your professional opinion, whether 6 or more of your board members might consider moving White Oak from a distant third option up to a viable second or even first option, if the city were willing to commit? Of course, we've already committed to being able to modifying any roads and sidewalks, public infrastructure to tie into that property necessary. But if the bugaboo on that property is the additional cost of land moving, could we find out what that cost was? And subsequently, if we decided as a commission that we would be willing to subsidize the additional cost, would that make it viable to the board, do you think?
I think that the way that you say to that, anyone would be crazy not to at least consider it and think about it. So let me be clear there. I don't think that the Hamilton County school system will expel the cost of figuring out how much to the dollar to move the dirt when the
That's not their intention to use the site.
right.
Right.
And when that like if it was voted on, I would it's difficult to say. If the city of Red Bank wanted to say we're willing to put this much money up, I'll bring all that information. And I was checking my phone to look at calendar items. I know that this body does not meet again for our next meeting because ours is pushed up by 1 week because
We can
of
make
the-
a special
We
call
can
meeting
have
if we
a
have
Well,
to.
and you have time tonight also to discuss it, but what I would love for you all to do is to put on paper for me to take back what you're willing to do. And that way I can.
Which we
state
could
it.
do better if
It's
we
hard for
had
us
the
to
cost
just throw a number out
estimates.
there.
Yeah, if
Well,
we
and-
had the cost estimates of what it would cost to do this over here, or like you all potentially even looking at like you said, a privately owned property in the city somewhere else. We have large swaths of land still that people are sitting on. So like looking at those as potential options and like cost estimates for those.
So all of
Before
that.
we could, I mean, I don't know how we can say we can give you $2 million when we don't know like what kind of impact is that going to have? Because if it's going to cost $80 million, that's probably not helpful, right?
In a great scenario with a better timeline, we could do all of those things.
Sure.
I'm worried that.
Keep
the
coming down to the
is up.
timeline.
Yeah.
So one more question, maybe for city staff. Can we talk about some of the pros and cons of accelerating the small area plan and maybe a staff recommendation on that part?
Sure. When we say
Thank you.
accelerate, that
That's what we
just
mind.
gives the guidance to the consultant to start their focus on that arena. Traditionally, you would see a comprehensive plan work its way forward and then move in, I would say, a 3 to 6 month window, you see that small area study come along. This would just shift the focus and start with the area study to start, it's more importantly, it's a public engagement. Have those conversations. What do you see here? What would you like to see? And how would that play out? So I don't want you to have the impression that it's one or the other. They will still happen simultaneously. We just won't have the big city scope picture through the comprehensive plan to look at the small area study immediately.
To determine, hey, do we want to use this space for like economic development, housing, green space, education, et cetera, because we want to look at like where the gaps are throughout the community, what the needs are and what the desires are of the community.
Correct. And through the comprehensive plan, through the economic analysis, you'll start seeing what some of those impacts could or could not be, depending on what proposed uses happen on that property.
Okay.
That may be more readily available than I'm assuming, but I would rather side on error versus the assumption that it is there. So again, I don't see it being detrimental to turn and focus on the small area study as the leading milestone versus the overall comprehensive plan.
Well, Representative Connor has the same definition of compromise that I do, which is if both parties are unhappy, then you're doing it right. And from my perspective, having what we might perceive as suboptimal sequence of events on our comprehensive plan and small area plan is an acceptable compromise to try to meet the county somewhere on their much more accelerated timeline. So I would be willing to give the direction to the consultant to, again, put the small area plan first and include the educational as one of many options, with the full knowledge that the county may or may not be enough to convince the county to give us the time that we need to fully vet it. But I'm not willing to give up the vetting process or make a decision today.
Okay. Does anyone else want to talk?
Go ahead.
Oh, I'll say that, based on what Ms. Johnson just said, if we want to go ahead and prioritize kind of community engagement efforts on that piece first, I still would ask that you, as soon as humanly possible, get us that data. I still I don't know, just depending on what comes out of that data. And also maybe Commissioner Sharp, you can ask Commissioner Helton if they have made any progress on getting some of that financial data on their end. We could have a special called meeting, just because I think that information is really going to guide how we're thinking about it and also how we're engaging the community about it.
Deciding how much money we could commit to the White Oak site is something we could decide in a much shorter timeline.
And that's
the
also
county's timeline.
Something we're going to have to ask our residents. I mean, we did a survey in a week's time. We had 196 responses, and I asked you about the Hamilton County school facility that they had out, which I know was out for weeks, and out of the whole Hamilton County had 1,000 responses. So actually, for us in our short timeline, we had really good response rate.
All things considered.
But all things considered. But overwhelmingly, our community said, we would be willing to consider the city commission investing alongside you all in a site. But I know they would want to know what that would look like. So I feel like we really would have to have that data to also inform how we're engaging with our community, to say, hey, this is what it would cost. Are you still on board with the city investing funds in that way?
Commissioners?
Well, of course, this is my proverbial ox getting gored. Okay, okay. So, I mean, this is my plan. And we started. I'm the champion of. Okay. And we started the long-term plan so that we could figure out what the short-term plan was. That being said, I too would be willing to compromise because they're going to happen alongside one another anyway. And if that's an olive branch that keeps us looking, then I'm willing to do that. Absolutely. You know, against, you know, that's a pretty big compromise for me. Let me put it that way. All right. I'm standing tall as I can.
We've held up for a long time.
Yes.
I look at this as an opportunity for our city to have a showcase elementary school. And that they're willing to come before us with their idea. I know it's a push and the timeline is not what we would prefer, but it is what it is, and how we can, as you mentioned, work together to make this happen.
So you're okay with?
I'd like the
Moving
accelerated move and, yeah, get it as quickly as possible.
Commissioner Wilkinson?
It's a reluctant yes to accelerate.
Oh, believe me, I'm reluctant.
Yeah.
You know, I am, but I'm willing to do that if you know.
Yeah, it's like,
But you know, I kind of look at it as a Hail Mary pass to just be honest with you.
Right.
You
And
know?
again, we're all here fully present with the awareness that the community's answer might be no to a school. And that the community's answer could be yes, and the county could move on without us because of our timeline. So this definitely does not preclude any answer, predict any answer.
Well, should I make a motion that,
This is not a
Not yet.
voting item.
okay, it's
Or we
not.
don't have any
just kind
votes
of
during our work
consensus.
session.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
and staff,
Thank
it's
you.
a staff direction, so it's,
simply work.
yeah, it's just a consensus
Okay,
of the board.
thank you.
So do you have what you need from us, Deputy Director?
I did.
Okay,
Now, as we go, I may need more information from, obviously, the Board of Education in Hamilton County, just as far as what gets presented. It's
Okay.
not my place to identify what a school facility could look like, but giving it its equal weight to any and all other options that could happen on the property, I would want the Board of Education's assistance in providing some information.
And that's a great point. Dr. Robertson did mention that he would have, I don't remember if it was Justin or not, but they would create a box on our box of where a school would look like on the former Red Bank Middle property, so that you all could utilize it in that facilities conversation, in that small area plan of this is what a school would look like. So.
because we did discuss the footprint, and we were told the typical elementary school site is between 10 and 15 acres, and that site is 12 acres. So that does not leave much shared space,
Well,
potentially.
Let me correct just a little bit, because the school itself would only be about 4 acres. But what Dr. Robertson said was, when you're looking into, driving areas, when you're looking into a ball field and an outdoor play area and a playground for the little kids and the bigger kids, that's when it gets into the larger acreage. And all of those outdoor areas would be shared spaces. I believe I'm repeating him correctly.
After school hours.
Well,
Yes, after school hours.
I would say that we need to go in eyes wide as a city, that the whole site becomes an elementary school during school hours. So there isn't gonna be like a bar or a coffee shop or, pick up basketball.
It does preclude a lot of other potential
Yes.
uses.
Yeah.
Including revenue to the city. It becomes publicly held land. It's 12 acres of commercial land in our central business district. And to commit it to educational purposes, that our die is cast as a city for the next 100 years.
Yep.
And so we just need to be eyes wide about financial impact of, school district utilization of those 12 acres for the indefinite future.
Right. They neither generate property taxes nor sales taxes.
Nor any other activity during school hours, and limited activity during non-school hours. It's going to be an elementary school.
Yeah. If the residents should select that path, and it's not too slow for the county's purposes. There's several ifs in there.
I would say that I have to say, because as a school board member, and the reason I ran, that I put a very high value on educating our youth. So that's invaluable any area that's dedicated to a public school is an invaluable part of land.
Yeah.
And I do want to repeat this. I said it in the meeting, and I want you all to know from the bottom of my heart that I feel like I'm pushing things on you, and I don't want you to think that. I want you to think that I am bringing the message from the board to your commission. And I read this, and I stand by this. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City Commission of the City of Red Bank, Tennessee, that this commission desires to retain an elementary school within Red Bank city limits. And I feel like I am acting on that sentence.
And we appreciate your service,
Yes,
Representative
thank you.
Connor. We know your position is not easy.
We're not shooting the messenger.
We do our best not to.
Thank you.
We revise our pronouns whenever we can.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ben.
Do we need to consider a special called meeting to discuss the White Oak site and any potential investment pending information?
Yeah, I would think we would need to get the information first potentially and hear from Mr. Connor as to like how quickly he could maybe get some estimates to us.
Send me what you want tonight. And
Okay.
I will immediately send it on to whomever.
Okay.
Having a call meeting, would it be worthy of having citizens, residents know?
We
Is
always,
that-
they would
it's
be
A
notified. It would
special
be
called
noticed.
meeting would have the full public notice,
Yeah.
agenda.
And
all of the-
inviting them for their input, me being opportunity, I know it's Christmas season, but it's school season too.
Yeah.
And the urgency of their input
Mhm.
at a time we could all be together.
Continued input.
Mr.
Yeah.
Granum.
Mayor, you were at the meeting with Deputy Director Johnson and I. The challenge with any conversation about the White Oak site, I don't sense any desire on the part of any of the actors on the other side of this conversation. The superintendent's, staff, the school board, or the county commission to explore the White Oak site. So I don't know who the discussion partner would be to have the conversation with. Somebody would have to present as on that side of the equation, they're ready for a conversation. As the city manager, there's nobody to talk to at the moment.
I mean, I met with 3 of the school board members separately on that site. And they were shocked at how large it was, and didn't know that the school district owned it in full. So I wouldn't say that the school board broadly is against that property. I think they probably don't know as much about it as we do, it being situated in our city. And I also think we have to be thoughtful about certain conversations being led a certain way intentionally. I mean, I don't know if what if we invited each school board member individually to have a conversation with them? I don't know. But I'm not really sure that one person can speak for 11 people on a governing body.
It seems to me like if we could request his presence, that Justin Witt would be the person from the county side that might be able to speak to any potential difficulties of that site. But is your opinion, Mr. Graham, that it could be a fool's errand to invest too much time into that site if it's not considered viable from a political standpoint, regardless of the city's investment?
Well, I'm speaking on behalf of other people, and that's always a dangerous thing, but I haven't heard anybody from the other side of the conversation who wants to have the conversation. And if there is somebody from the other side who wants to get on your calendar and talk to you about finding ways to make White Oak work, we could do that in a heartbeat. I would love to agenda that meeting, but I don't know who that conversation would be with.
So do we want to go through the trouble of a special called meeting in the hopes that sending good vibes into the ether will facilitate any kind of positive change in the attitude towards that property? Or are we resolved to continue on the path that's been presented?
Well, I mean, if there's nobody to talk to,
Well, the idea
I mean,
would
we
be-
don't need to meet for meeting's sake.
Well, the idea would be, I would think that there might not be anybody from the county side other than maybe Ben and or David. But if we could get the numbers from the county of what the additional cost would be for that site, whether or not anybody from the county shows up, this commission could pass a resolution saying, you know, we hereby commit to this many dollars to the White Oak site and send that on to the county, and they can take it or leave it. It's simply an offer of an incentive that it may go unanswered. But it's another tool in our toolbox we could consider.
I think, you know, you could consider reaching out to school board member Marco Perez. He is the chair of the finance committee for the school board. And and Alpine Crest used to be under his jurisdiction before we were redistricted. And Ms. Lennon's.
He's currently over Red Bank Elementary.
That's right.
Which would be affected.
Or, I
By the
mean, you all
rezoning.
could reach out to him for, you know, you could maybe potentially have a conversation like you all did this morning. Maybe with him and Mr. Witt.
If he's willing to meet with us
Mhm.
or available. Is there an appetite of this board to have a special called meeting to that regarding the White Oak property? And incentivizing it with the city investment?
Yeah, I mean, if there's new information to work with, sure.
Yeah.
Want
Okay,
to have the conversation.
then calendar wise, when would we wanna try to do that?
Can we, I
Could
mean,
do
I
it
don't know, can we do
24th
it
this
without
month.
having any idea when we might get information?
Any, you don't know? Hopefully,
Ask for it.
at
Second I get-
least,
If, as soon as Vice Mayor Dalton sends me the details of what she wants, I will forward that email immediately to everyone I can think of that might be able to get it.
hopefully at least a week might be enough time to get something worthy of discussion. We can always cancel the special called meeting if we don't get the information that we need. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
We
that's
can,
fine.
we can schedule it and then call it off if we don't have the necessary information. Would Tuesday, December 12th work for everyone present?
My question is also, can we invite the public to get their input
It will be-
into?
It's publicly noticed.
Yes,
They-
all special called meetings will be.
Because that's
publicly
my,
noticed.
I'd like to hear
Mhm.
the
In fact, I
pros,
think they
cons, and
have
all
a
in
higher
between.
standard of public notice than a standard meeting does.
Okay, okay,
What
thank
is
you.
that standard? Is it a couple days or what's the
It's
minimum?
at
amount of time?
least-
Of a week,
One
that-
week
unless it's an emergency.
for a special called meeting.
And
right.
we have to specify what the item is on the agenda that we'll be talking about.
Whether or not it'll be
And
voted
whether
on.
or not it will be voted on and whether or not citizen comments will be allowed.
Well, actually, now we do.
Well, I
Now
guess we
public
would have
comments
to
are
require
required
that anyway, yes.
because of the change in the
That's
state
right.
law.
That's right.
Yeah.
So it would be on there anyway.
It might be 5 days as opposed to a week.
Okay,
We just need to check that.
Sure.
so a week would be safe. Would the 12th work for everyone present?
Yeah, the 12th will, 19th will not.
Yeah, the
Okay.
12th works.
Well, we have a
We have a
commission
meeting
meeting already on the
19th.
19th.
Oh,
Oh.
oh, okay.
We have a
Maybe
second
there.
meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, my mom's birthday. Yeah, that's
Same-
mom's birthday. I might miss that one.
5 o'clock, 6 o'clock,
I think 6 for the public.
6?
If, 4,
6, okay?
yeah.
All right, so tentatively, we're calling a special called meeting to discuss the topic of the former White Oak Elementary site.
I mean, could we, I don't know. I mean, if we're talking about, I'm potentially talking about asking for like cost estimate for Alpine Crest as well. Like, I would like to see those potential numbers before we're ruling out. We are ruling out what we are potentially presenting to people or whatever. And understanding the differences in those costs and why the school board or school district, you know, may be
Not considering that.
right.
Deputy Director?
Yeah, professionally, I just don't think that that is enough time to turn around, and that puts a tremendous stress on whomever the board may try to gather that information from.
Would it make sense to add it to the agenda for the 19th for discussion then, to our existing meeting? That would be 2 weeks.
We
for gathering
can.
information.
I think the challenge is I don't sense any desire on the part of the school district to explore these options. So we're gonna have to try to coerce them into giving us numbers that they really don't want to come up with.
And it might not work, and if so, we can, even if it's on a regular meeting, we can table the item if necessary, if we are not able to get the data. From my perspective, I want to be able to tell the people of Red Bank that we tried to explore every option and explored all avenues available to us to try to keep a school in our city limits. And this is probably a Hail Mary throw that might not be practical, but if there's an inkling of hope for it, then I want to, in good faith, try to explore it to whatever capacity we're able to.
Yeah, I mean, the conversations I had with the 4 school board members I met, I mean, they were open to hearing from us what we were willing to, how we were willing to pitch in and partner with them, as well as wanting data from the school district themselves on why is this not feasible. I heard that from one of them directly when I said, White Oak Elementary, I'm being told it's not an option. And they said, well, I would need to see data to show me why. So I wouldn't say that all the school board members are like, I think they maybe just don't have the information. But I know one of them that I met with personally did say they would need that data before
Okay.
they could
So-
say, no, that's not an option for me either.
So no special called meeting, but on our agenda for the 19th, then a discussion, and I suppose we would need to put as well a potential opportunity on a regular meeting for a vote regarding a financial commitment towards one or more potential elementary school sites in the city limits.
May I ask a question
Yeah,
really quick,
please.
Mayor? Mr. Connor, I don't know if you know this, but I believe that Dr. Robertson talked about you all potentially having a special called meeting yourselves, like after your regular meeting and between your January meeting. Is that something that you've got scheduled? Not yet? Okay.
I believe it will be scheduled in our meeting on the 14th.
Okay.
If I had to assume. It has not been asked if we're available many times, but the 20th and the 27th, we're just told, not asked. So, yeah, they felt really lucky for me. But yeah, so I'm glad you called me back up here because I did want to say that on the record, that the next school board meeting is on the 14th
Okay.
and I didn't bring my phone up here, but the January meeting is on, what's that third Thursday? Is it the 19th of January?
No, it's the
19th 's a
18th.
Tuesday.
It's the 18th.
It's
It's the 18th.
Mayor, may I make a comment? Yes. In our meeting earlier today, with the attendees that I mentioned, when we tried to bring up the subject of, it was agenda, number 4 was, how can we make the Alpine Crest Elementary School location work for new elementary school? And agenda item number 5 was, how can we make the former White Oak Elementary School location work for the new elementary school? The answer was, why are you wasting my time talking about those sites? The conversation is about the former Red Bank Middle School site, period. That was almost a direct quote.
Well, our job would
Can I
be,
interject, Mr. Connor,
Oh.
is this something that the school board is deciding? Do you know all of this? Because that is rude, Mark.
It is rude.
That is very rude. Do you won't know, I mean, why can't it be explored? Have the school board body said we don't want to look at the White Oak Elementary?
Miss
site?
Lennon, would you like to
On
give
that?
your name and address for the
I'm
record?
sorry, Kathy Lennon, 401 Christmas Street.
The way that I said it, that's not something I said. The way that I was talking about it is it feels like on the board that there are options 1, 2, and 3. And currently, option 1 is at the former Red Bank Middle property. And then option 2 is the DuPont property. And I listed I said a couple times that I feel like the White Oak is a distant third because of multiple different things that I've mentioned a couple times, like
Mhm.
the streets
Right.
and the cost of moving the dirt more and. So again, I may have mentioned this, I'm speculating, but that's the feeling that I've gotten. That's the feeling that when I was meeting with Mayor Womp and the superintendent, that was the feeling that they had, that I shared. And that's what we talked about today. And that's why when we spoke about the Red Bank Middle property wasn't even on that agenda today. And it's very clearly something that's been talked about a lot.
It was on the
And
agenda.
that's-
It was.
It was
on
not.
It was item
And
six.
that's why.
Item
was-
6 reads as follows. What other locations are worth considering and why?
So it wasn't listed as one of them, and it felt like the superintendent did not feel like it was an option for coming from the city. And so,
Well, it is not your job, Representative Connor, to defend your employee, Dr. Justin Robertson.
I'm just, when we continued having the conversation, that's where we were, is that we need to talk about everything. We need to talk about what's ahead of us and put them in ranked order of what the board is feeling like.
So, sure, yes. Just for the record, Dr. Justin Robertson does not have a vote on the school board. He also can't necessarily definitively all the time speak for all 11 of his bosses.
At no point I think that he did today. I think that every time we said, we speculate, we feel like this is what's going on. And I'm comfortable saying that I feel like that's where we are. I'm comfortable saying that based on the conversations that we've had in open meetings.
Luckily, this body does not answer to the county. We answer to the people of Red Bank. And so we may be banging our heads against a brick wall called Hamilton County from time to time. But that's not to be said that we did not try, again, every tool in our toolbox and explore every option available to us within our limited capacity and power to do so. Mr. Stolz, do you need any other information in order to make this an agenda item for next meeting?
I think not.
Okay, thank you very much.
For next meeting on the 19th.
On the 19th.
I feel that we can pull that together appropriately. That would enable you the full panoply of the things that we've been discussing tonight to move forward with.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Stolz.
I unfortunately will not be here on the 19th. I'm sorry.
We appreciate you have been here many times
Yes, thank you
for
both.
these discussions.
Coming whenever I can, I promise.
We will consider whatever information you are able to gather for us by that meeting, your contribution.
And as Vice Mayor Dalton mentioned, so there is the 14th of December, there is the 18th of January, and it has been stated in a public meeting that there will be another facilities committee meeting in between those 2 dates. I would anticipate in the first few weeks of January.
And again, if something transpires in one of those meetings that invalidates this agenda topic, again, we can always table it at that time. Any other discussion of the school facilities conversation before we move into our regular city business?
You still want me to give you another $1,000?
Thank you very much again,
Thank
Representative
you.
Connor
Thank you.
and Commissioner Sharp for joining us today for this important conversation. We really appreciate you being here for it.
And our junior school board members for
Yes.
being so delightful.
Yes. Thank you. You guys have been troopers. So we are way over time for our regular meeting. Is there anything else on the work session agenda that anybody desires that we should discuss before moving into our regularly scheduled meeting? Or is it all right with everybody present to table these remaining work session items for next meeting?
Sure.
Maybe we put them at the end of our regular meeting. If there's some important stuff to discuss.
Can we do that,
No.
Mr. Stoltz?
No, you can't vote on anything that's not on our regular.
Well, a lot of these are discussion
You can
items.
Discuss anything you want to discuss, you just can't vote on.
Yeah.
Can we
that's what I
move
meant.
those discussions to the
Okay.
regular?
Discuss anything you want to.
Okay, so we
Can't vote on it unless it's on the agenda.
Okay.
we will table these items in order to, and then after we conclude our regular city business, which is a little behind, if anybody wants to come back to any of these discussion items, then we can. Okay, sound good?
Great.
All right, does anybody want a brief recess before?
I need to use
our
the
6
restroom.
o'clock meeting? All right, we'll take a brief recess. Thank you,
I'll go
everyone.
first. My bladder's open.
My water bottle.